Cool. Hey, welcome to the podcast, Craig.
Great. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
One question I like to ask every guest is, who do you say you are?
Who do I say I am? I have an analogy. I'm probably not going to say it in a podcast, but yeah, so a movie quote that I like to go. But I think I'm like an unstoppable machine at the end of the day. I just
Mm.
keep going and going and going all the time. So I would just say I am someone who is just, I'm going to get to my goals no matter what. So an unstoppable machine is a good one to say.
I
That's
like that.
uh,
I guess like how did you become this machine, or like what was it like growing up? Like what did you look forward to?
That's a great question. Great timing with that because I am in the process of finishing my first book, and so I had to dive into where I came from and what made me me. And I really kind of
Mm.
dove back into the story. And I think I'm a continuation of my mother and her childhood. And I think she faced a lot of adversity when she was born. Her mother died in childbirth, and her father rejected her. So during life, she had to always faced adversity to raise herself up, being shuffled from relative to relative. And she faced a lot of adversities. And then when I was born, I had a couple of adversities I had to face, and she really pushed me through those challenges of my life. And so I think I had the nature versus nurture, I think was both because the fact is I'm her DNA. And then every time I faced an obstacle, she was pushing me. And the thought I have in my head is like, not on my watch. What my
Mm.
mom had when she went through is like, I'm not gonna allow my son to have anything uh, to get in his way. I'm gonna push him through his adversities, and the adversity started as an early age. When I was a kid, I had a crooked spine, so I couldn't walk straight, and I had to wear leg
Mm.
braces like Forrest Gump. Later on in life, there was an episode of when I think that went away for a while, and then after school one day, we got all held because we all had to see the nurse, and lo and behold, one of us had something wrong with him. It was me, and this was, I think, sixth grade. And then my mother stepped in and visited a bunch of doctors, and then got me into exercise, like lifting weights, because the doctor said if I lifted
Mm.
weights, it would hold everything in place. So it's always kind of continuation of myself facing adversity and her coming and pushing me through it. So
Mm.
that's where it started, and then there's more stories after that. That's the
Gotcha.
beginning, yeah, the beginning stages.
I guess like how did you feel facing the adversities when they first started, or when you how did you see your mom kind of walk through hers?
Yeah, I mean, you're a kid, so I don't think when you're like 2 or 3, you really remember it much because I didn't realize
Mm.
this like 4 years ago. I had to ask her about it because I kept having a dream about it, and I was like,
Mm.
"What? Well, did something happen?" So that was kind of blocked out.
Mm.
And then for myself, it just became iteration again and again and again. And then after a while, I just kind of, when things pop up, I just kind of know what I got to do in those situations and lean into it
Mm.
and starting getting more comfortable with the uncomfortable and just
Yeah.
became part of my DNA in life. And I would say that goes to her because in her life, the same thing. She had to kind of push herself through those adversities and just kind of creates this mental kind of strength with you. And
Mm.
it's a lot of people say it's learned, but I'm more it's developed. It's through
Mm.
iteration, it's through your experiences, it's through the people you surround yourself with. And it was
Right.
again and again and again. And when I face adversity through life or anything personal or anything business wise, I kind of know what I got to do. And the big thing is by doing it again and again, you kind of gain that confidence. And that's the big
Mm.
word I like to focus on is confidence. I'm confident in myself to do that,
Right.
which is good in some ways. In other ways, it's not as good because you have higher expectations for people. So that's tough. That's one thing I'm learning with is like, what can I how can I delegate some things at the same time? I know I'm confident I could solve anything, and then how could
Mhm.
I uh, develop people around me to be the same way? So that's been the next stage of learning how to do that.
Gotcha. So I guess it's easy to say you're a very good go-getter growing up, like having to like learn and through muscle memory, like, okay, I've got to get through this, get through that. And like, did you find yourself in leadership roles, or how did you place yourself among your friends?
Looking back, yeah, I was the glue that held us together. So I was the
Mm.
one from my hometown that had the opportunity to get away out of town
Mm,
for school, and it's like the friendships were not eroded, but it was disconnected. It's everyone was more,
mm,
and then I'd come back home and pull everyone together. I'm like, well, what's wrong with this? And someone would say something. I was like, oh, forget that. Let's all hang out together. Come on, we're all
yeah.
friends. Write that. And so, yeah, I was at the end of the day. I was the one who brought people together. Even as a kid, I had like fun birthday parties too. All the kids
Mm,
showed up, and we did a lot of things together. I had a good sized backyard, and the house was next to a schoolyard, so it was always
mhm.
having some fun doing what little kids do, and then go and play sports. We always played sports because there's a giant schoolyard next door. So the parents always told my mom we had, uh, your son had great birthday parties. The kids had a lot of fun at them. So I
Yeah,
guess looking back, it always started. Yeah, it started at an early age. That kind of leadership bug, and um, yeah, it's always kind of been a go getter myself, and uh, yeah, you got me thinking back. So yeah, yeah, it's great.
gotcha. I, I guess did that push you in any direction? Like, what was it you were looking to do at that age? Like, say in your teen years, as you're pre-college or pre-high school going into high school. Like, what was it that you enjoyed? Was it like the cohesionness of your friend group, or like did you have your set sight on like, oh, I want to take over the world, or like go solve world hunger or something like that?
Yeah, I had a really tight group of friends in high school. I really liked that. At the same
Mm,
time, I was very institutionalized because I went to like a private all boys Catholic school.
mm,
And I had this inclination that there's more to the world. And I felt like they were trapping me into a certain path they wanted to put me on.
mm,
And it started in junior and high school when they gave you a list of colleges to go to. And I looked and it's like, oh, another list of Jesuit schools. I'm like, well, there's more to the world than Jesuit colleges. I'm just 4 years in this institutional
mm,
schooling right now, and it's very strict and you're learning a lot. But I was like, there's no way I'm doing another 4 years of this. And so I had to
yeah.
put my foot down and uh, push through that. And that was another adversity examples where the counselor said, here's the schools and that's it. I'm not going to recommend it anywhere else. And
Mm,
I had to go, my mom was a school teacher, and I said, hey, I can't do this. And she had to hire someone on the side to help me out, a counselor on the side, because the school wouldn't give me any support to go to
mm,
schools outside their what they wanted me to go. And it was ridiculous.
right.
And I got along with most of my teachers very fine, but I
Mm,
didn't get along with that college counselor at all.
mm,
And the fact that yeah, it was just a very kind of toxic relationship with that person. And I'd always remind him that, hey, my parents paid for this skill, so technically you gotta listen to me. And he didn't like that when he said that. I got in trouble with that one a few times. But
yeah.
that's the truth, though. Like now I have customers, so I was a customer, right, as a kid, but they don't like that in the Catholic school system. And so
Mm,
we went out and we got a counselor and looked at different schools, and so I ended up going to the University of Colorado Boulder, which
mm,
was a complete culture shock for me from coming to a very institutionalized East Coast Catholic city that was small, and then going across to the Rocky Mountains in this big liberal school that I didn't know anyone at. So it was a
mm,
culture shock for me, but it was great. It was great learning for myself.
mm. I guess what were some of the things that stood out very quickly?
Everything.
Mm,
Everything. It just back then, I think the first year was the early '90s, and the information flow was a lot different. The pace was a lot
mm,
slower. Uh,
mm,
Very much into the environment very early. I got to see how they were into the environment, a lot of outdoor stuff, a lot of hiking, uh, mountain biking, and caring for the environment. And I really didn't see that a lot on the East Coast. The
mm,
views of everyone had were very liberal. A lot of I took a lot of interesting courses. I think there's a course
mm,
like on Madonna in college. There's a lot of women's rights courses. It was very very liberal, very opening. So I got to see the
mm,
other perspective, and I leaned into it. I took some of those classes because I wanted to learn the other side. I was always
mm,
someone who was very curious about things and that exposure, and I never had that on that institutionalized East Coast Catholic upbringing. They always kind of put you on a certain path, and so
mm,
I found it fascinating. and I was sucking that
Yeah.
all in. It was great to learn that stuff.
Gotcha. I guess what led you to look outside of the like the Jesuit system that you grew up in?
Uh, it was started at an early age there too. I don't know what it was. It was something to question things all the
Mm,
time. And before that, I was in public school, and I remember I had to go to Sunday school. And
mm,
I
mm.
feel like this is an old movie, and I'm right out of a movie with a movie quote. And I kept asking the teacher questions, and you're being just, and she would kick me out of class, and you're being
Mm,
disruptive. I'm like, it's Sunday school, yeah, kick me out. I don't want to go home. I don't want to be here.
mm.
And I wouldn't like getting. I was like flunking every test, and it's not
Yeah,
because I didn't want to like try. I didn't want to try. I was like, I don't want to regurgitate what you're teaching me. And then finally, she's like, if you don't get 100 on the final or hold me back, and I'm like, oh, there's no way I want to do another year of this stuff. So
mm.
I get 100% on the test, and then she accuses me of cheating, and I'm like, I
Of
didn't
course.
cheat. And
Mm,
then she had to give me another test with my parents there, face to
mm,
face, and I got 100 right in front of her. And she goes to looks at my mom, who's a school teacher, and goes, "I just don't understand your son. He's so disruptive in class, and here he is. He's getting 100." And she gives me a
mm.
little wink, like play the game, right? So that's when
Yeah.
I started learning. I just had to play the game going ahead. And so when I was in high school, and we had a lot of, you can see my grades pretty much A's across the board. And then theology was like C's. So it was just tough for me
Mm.
to regurgitate that information back
Right,
again
right.
and again. It was just hard. It's a hard thing to do, because you couldn't question anything. If you questioned that professor, you just, they gave you a bad score at the end of the
Yeah.
day. And it felt confining at the end of the day. You couldn't express
Mm.
yourself.
That
Very
that
pre
makes sense.
social media back then.
Got
Yeah.
you. No, that makes sense because for me, my dad's a pastor, so I grew up being a preacher's kid, and it's like you very restrictive in a sense of like you're, I guess you could say more sheltered in a way. And like before, I didn't get the reason like why you don't watch TV during the day. Maybe you could say we grew up either like Pentecostal or non-denominational, but then like going into college, I spent more time trying to figure out, or not a lot of time, but some time trying to figure out like why do we have so many denominations, and like what does it mean for me versus like what my parents told me. And even like 10 years after college, I'm starting to look into it a little bit more to be like, okay, hey, like a lot of things that I learned, maybe they were taught differently, but like I get a chance to like look at it. But I get identify with you with that curiosity of wanting to see what's on the other side. But I guess I'm I'm glad that you mentioned the public school, because for me it was like you get taught one way when you're at home and like you do church with your parents because your dad's the pastor. But then when you go to school, going to a public school is like everybody just thinks and acts differently from you. Or not everybody, but most everybody. So it's like, um, okay, like there's some things like I guess maybe I wasn't as bold. Like there were things that I wanted to question, but like once you kind of see the game or you see like, hey, things go a lot easier if you kind of just go along with things. So I like your explanation of that.
Yeah, it was good. And then of course you had some fun with it. I always had some fun with it. And there's a leadership thing there. So
Mm,
I could say this nowadays because it's okay. So they used to make us go to like mass, and
mhm.
as I got older, I knew how to skip the masses. So I'd always like, can I drop my homework off at Mr. So and so's class like right before the mass? And then I
Yeah.
would go, and then I'd go and I'd like because we were on a campus, and I'd have like
Mhm,
then I'd like have my car not parked in the parking lot but across the street, and so I'd go to my
mhm.
car and take off. And I did it enough times that all my friends around me was I was a leader of getting
Mhm.
everyone out of going to mass, and that's where the grades got down because they'd give you a quiz on the mass. I'm like,
Yeah,
I wasn't there. I can't. You can't cheat. It's too hard. So it's like I was like,
gotcha.
it's like it was zero, and I couldn't regurgitate what I didn't hear that
Mm.
the priest said. So I got known as the guy who was very good at skipping all the masses all the time and all that stuff. So at first it was me, and then one person, then two, and then all of a sudden it became like 20 or 30.
Mm.
I had a whole way to do it. There's a certain way to do it and structure behind
Yeah,
it, how you leave. And then when you come back in, they would kind of catch you because they could see the parking lot was on a hill, so and the parking lot's
right, right.
below. to catch you. So you had to like park the right place, and then you had to time it so when the crowds of people came back, you just kind of jump in the line, because if you were by yourself, again, they could see you. So I had it down. I got caught once. That wasn't too
Yeah.
bad. I got caught once. Yeah, but that
It
was
almost
fun.
sounds like a Prison Break episode where it's like you're timing when the guard's watching, like what's going on here, what's going on there. Okay, now we can go.
Yeah, we always went to this. We had this local restaurant. I remember it's called Johnny's. It was like $2 for like two eggs, cup of coffee, and like two strips of bacon. And we'd always all go there. And the word got out once from the dean, and he showed up there, and that's how we got caught. It was great. And I tried to run in the
Uh,
bathroom, but there's the window was like it was like a gated. Had one of those mesh things you
yeah.
couldn't go through the window. But yeah, he caught on once, and I was like, great, that was our spot. Uh, you walked in there, and there's like 20 of us in there, and we're all kind of dressed up in an outfit, so it's kind of obvious that
Yeah.
the hey, I'm
I,
like, we're supporting a local business. He didn't buy that one.
that's hilarious. And I guess what's something you got out of the boarding school going into college? Like what's something you kept with you?
Oh, the education, I think, was a good base education, and really creating the habits of how to study and apply
Mm,
myself, because there's a lot of focus going on. You're a lot of focus. You're in a classroom; they're very strict, right? And so you
yeah.
having that focus, the preparation of how to just do a paper or take a test, and do that. And those foundations, some of those techniques, I still use today to do things. So I just know if I had to take an exam or any kind, those are my habits came from those 4 years there,
Mm,
and they worked for me. They for myself they worked very well for me. So I apply it, and usually I could get the 100% on a test, just applying those techniques.
gotcha.
And the base education was very very strong, I would say,
Mm.
too, as well.
Did you find yourself going back there to visit, like coming back from college or during the holidays or anything like that?
Let's see. Last I visited because my one of my good friends, he wanted his son to go to school, so I did visit,
Mm,
and to visit to put in a good word for him. I think that was
mm.
I didn't really visit that long ago to do that, and yeah, and of course we had a good sports team, and so I went to the Thanksgiving football game. That was fun.
Mm,
And everything I thought it didn't evolve. It was the same thing. It was just the same
mm.
exact school. I was amazed. And fortunately for me, I walk in the school. I have my daughter with me, and it's
Yeah.
all boys school, right? So they're
Mm.
asking for donations. I have three daughters. I was like, I would, but my daughters can't go to your school. If you do change things up, yeah, you get donations. So I did that, and
Yeah.
it turns out that I was talking to the dean of admissions, and he
Mm,
he turned out to be delivered paper to newspapers to my house growing up to remember my parents.
mm.
So small world. Like the recommendation for my buddy's son was very easy to get for that reason. Uh,
Nice.
so that was
Very
my
cool.
last experience going back there. Yeah, it was fun.
Gotcha. And I guess when you were at college, what did you decide to study and why?
Great question. I mean, I started out as a very much I wanted to get an environmental law. I wanted to fight for a cause.
Mm,
So that curriculum, they had a great environmental law program, and I think it
mm,
was top three in the country at that time. But that was post grad, so you had to go to the undergrad. So undergrad was more environmental studies,
mm.
and so I started there. I think I lasted a semester in environmental studies. I didn't really care about indigenous plant species and
Mm.
all that stuff. I wanted to fight for the cause. So it's like, okay,
Right, right.
maybe now let's change direction and go kind of pre-law. So then I can get that side of things
Mm,
and take it from a different angle. And so still kind of on that mission to do that, to fight for that cause. And
mm,
then they didn't really have a pre-law; it was more political science. And then I took a couple
mm,
semesters there. It was good; it wasn't too bad. But then they're teaching you curriculum on Eastern political theory, and the Cold War
mm,
just ended. And
mm,
so I was feeling that I was learning. The professor couldn't even tell me what's going on in the countries, or reading
mm.
curriculum that was outdated, wasn't
Right,
pertinent
right.
because the Cold War just ended. So there's really no curriculum created. So I felt like I was wasting my college degree
Yeah.
on kind of a major that didn't really give me any substance because hey, the Cold War ended and all these Eastern Bloc countries are becoming independent now, so we don't know what their political theory is. So
Mhm.
I was like, let me just go into some type of science. Let me get something that I could walk away school with. So then I went into sports medicine,
Mhm.
which is a great decision because I really opened some doors for me with the premises knowing that I kind of at that point I started thinking I want to be an entrepreneur. And then I
Mhm.
was like, okay, let me just graduate with a degree and then go to business school afterwards.
You still got me?
Yeah, yeah, I'm still here. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. No, you're good. You're good. And that's pretty neat how you're able to, I guess, as you're going on the fly, you're looking at, okay, maybe I'll do this based on my interest. And it's like, this isn't what I thought it was. And like, you, did you quickly make the pivot or did you like linger a semester or two where it's like, I don't know what they're talking about in this class. Like this has nothing to do with the real world.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty quick. It was the end of the semester. I went in and just like I just gotta I am wasting my time here. I'm not getting
Mm.
any substance out of it. And so my thought process is like I need to get something that I could use the rest of life or something foundational, something scientific, right?
Right.
So I was like, so I just my brain went, let me go to science. Because science
Mhm.
is just proven fact. Let me not go into theories and at the time, when I mentioned being an entrepreneur, the reason I didn't go
Mhm.
into the business school right then is because my friends who were in business school, they were the guys up all night. They're getting A's, but they're out at the bars till 2 a.m. So I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, that's kind of a joke
No,
of a major,
gotcha.
right? So it's not going to give you
Gotcha.
substance. And I felt like since my parents worked hard and really put me through, I needed to go and get something of substance out of the school.
Gotcha. So I guess it sounds like you also moved through school or like you really moved through life with like a sense of purpose in the same way that you mentioned with how seeing how your mom grew up and kind of what she instilled in you to say it like, okay, hey, you can get through this and the next thing and the next thing. So you're not thinking like, okay, I got through this, had trouble walking before, now I can get better doing the weightlifting and things like that. And it's not like it's not for lot like it's not lost on you what it is that you're doing in life. You're kind of taking the lessons as you go and you're continuing to like maybe unconsciously you seem to be like moving towards something and be like, that might not be the best use of my time, given
Yeah,
what's
it's like
already been put into me.
it was like thinking back, it was like an instinct. It was like, nah, I shouldn't do that. And let's just keep going forward, keep moving. And like discovering, it's like, okay, I felt like I was on a journey, a discovery, and I had to keep going and changing things until I found my correct path. And that's
Mm,
what I felt and kept doing it. And even later in life, too, it's like, okay, I'm doing things that you think you want, and then there's like this emptiness in you. And so you keep going until you really find uh, what are you passionate about. And a couple
mm,
times I felt maybe I did find my passion, but just not really
mm,
until I think about 10 years ago, really I found it at the end of the day, but just kept plugging ahead and kept moving forward and just being determined, right? Just being
mm.
determined. I think that was from the upbringing, right? Just keep going and
Right,
leaning
right.
and moving forward again and again.
I think that is pretty neat. So I guess from when you're getting your graduate, you decide to go into physical therapy,
Uh,
or I think maybe I miss.
yeah, no, I just no. When I graduated, yeah, I got exposed to some great things, right? So first of all, I was started to work with the sports departments of the school. There's two different departments. I worked with both departments. I got
Mhm,
to work. We were a very prominent football team at that time, top five. So we had really great athletes around there, and got to be around them and work with them. I got some offers to work in post grad programs and stuff, but I knew
mm,
that wasn't my path. So I
mhm,
just kind of said, "Hey, thank you so much." But this is not my path. At that time, I knew, hey, it's just a major I'm going to get, but I was going to go. Kept telling everyone, I'm moving to California. I'm going to go there,
mhm,
study, get my MBA, and become an entrepreneur. And that was my
mm.
path. I just knew that was what I was going to do. And I did. I had a lot of great opportunities. It was really great exposure, seeing that world, the sports world, and how that worked.
Hmm.
And uh, especially our program was fantastic at that time period. We had some top athletes, and they went on the NFL career. A lot of those guys, and um, fascinating to see uh, seeing who they were and their stories and how they did
Hmm.
everything, and the coaches and stuff like that. And that opened some doors for me. Those relationships opened other doors for me down the road. There was always a crossover between sports and money, right? And
Hmm.
I started seeing that at an early age, and I was
Yeah.
more interested in myself and how to make money and be an entrepreneur and get wealthy. And so to see that ecosystem and how that was working, that was getting my first kind of glimpse of how that world was working. So
Gotcha.
was fascinating. Yeah.
And what'd you land on when you decided to dive into entrepreneurship? Or was that
Yeah.
the next step like you'd planned?
Yeah, it was always the plan. So moving to California, within the first year, I found a couple mentors, and that was basically it when I found them. And they put me on a path where I am today. One gentleman was a real estate developer. Another gentleman was a solvency attorney who structured. He knew how to structure deals, syndication, and raise capital, put together funds, and all that type of stuff. So I had the best of both worlds. I had one who knew how to structure the deals and raise capital. The other one knew how to
Mhm.
develop and find assets. And I just kind of leaned into it. And I was thinking, like, I was like 23 years old, and I was like, oh my God, I'm understanding the secrets of the wealthy here at an early
Mhm.
age. They opened the door just enough so I could pry it open and go in. And then I just
Yeah.
kind of dedicated myself to learning as much as I can about that and how that worked. That was a very iterative process. That was I didn't ever think it was hard to do. It just I kept
Mhm.
going forward and doing it, and just peeling the layers and how things worked from both sides, right? So how to find an asset to purchase and how to manage it, how to construct it and put all those pieces together. The other side was the capital formations and how to do that and see how that world worked, and the behaviors of those people, how to find investors, who did what and where. Started learning about locally and nationally and how things got done.
Mhm.
So that was a good experience. Yeah, it was a really great experience.
Yeah. How'd you meet your mentors? Because those are two significant people, like being in those positions to be like, okay, hey, I know how to not only attract money, but I also know like where to place it.
Yeah, that is a great question, and that's something I always an advocate about. No matter what you're doing in life, do it well and do it with a smile on your face because you
Mhm.
attract them. So there's like the intangibles. There is people out
Right.
there want to teach people stuff. They get to a stage and they kind of find people and they look at people like themselves. Well, there's someone who's a hardworking person. I think one guy was from the East Coast, so I think he gravitated towards me from that. Saw me working hard. The other one was just at a point in his life where he wanted to give back, and we just developed relationships, got to know each other. Uh, they saw the intangibles as a hard worker that was always
Mhm.
learning and asking questions, always consuming information. I think one of the bigger things, the more successful mentorships I had was I always listened to people and not
Mhm.
argue with them. So they gave me the advice, I would take it. So they'd tell me read a book, I'd read the book. Tell me do this, I would do that, and then that's that mutual respect happens. One of my mentors that's still around today, he's been around for almost 20 years in my life, and we have a
Mhm.
great relationship because he used to be in our this mentor group, the CO group, and he'd always
Mhm.
tell everyone to like read a book, and no one would read it except me. And then I start quoting him after a while. Right now, I call him like the Godfather, right? The Grand Poobah of
Yeah.
all the CO coaches. He's a whisperer, definitely with COs, and he's got all these words of wisdom that today I use all the time, and
Mhm.
they like it's just that kind of back and forth and that mutual respect that you give
Right.
other people. So if they're really a mentor to you, you got to listen to them. And a lot of people don't listen to
Yeah.
them. A lot of people
That's
go,
true.
"Oh yeah, I know," but no, they're here helping you. So take the information in. You don't need to repeat 30 years of their mistakes. They can tell you
Right.
right
Right.
now. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I guess that goes for writing a book like you're doing. And it's one thing to like buy the book but then it's another thing to read it and actually like do some of what's in there, or actually like even think back to like, oh, like did I actually understand what was in the book? And it's like, oh, okay, now that builds like a different form of relationship because you can actually relate to the information and the person.
Yeah, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I just one of the famous, I guess, pieces of advice that my mentor gave me. He said, "Confrontation is the search for the truth,"
Mm,
and and that started thinking about that more deeply. And I'm like, oh, that's just so when I'm asking someone a question about something, a lot of people nowadays they have their guard up and they're like,
mm.
oh, this person's being aggressive or this person's being confrontational. Now it's like
Right.
I am just leaning into this conversation to figure out what's going on. My goal here is nothing personal. It's just, hey, what is going on? What is the truth here? So yeah, that causes it's confrontation is the word. It's not like I'm
Mm,
it's not a negative word. Like we think confrontation is
right.
negative, but we need to have this conversation to figure out what's going on. That is a
Right.
confrontation. But
Mm,
we today we think confrontation is someone being too masculine or too aggressive, right?
right.
But it's
Right.
not. We're just trying to figure out what's going on here.
It's funny because when you say that, the other word that came to my mind was consequence. And it's like you always think that a consequence in a confrontation is a negative thing, but it's like when you do something, the consequence is the result of what happens because of what was done. And it's like you can have positive consequences. And then, like to your point, the confrontation allows you to learn something you wouldn't have otherwise learned. And by asking the question, it's like being willing to go like a little bit beneath the surface and not just be like, okay, hey, we're just staying up here, we're treading water. It's like there's a whole world under the ocean like we don't know about, but it's like few people have like gone in, or even if you go scuba diving and you're like, wow, like I wouldn't have seen this sitting in this room, but like being able to like contend with something and to look into it, it's like, wow, like I learned something, or I got exposed to something that I wouldn't have otherwise seen. So
Yeah,
I take that. Thank you for sharing that.
you're welcome. It's and the way we do it is just people are all different. They're everyone's
Mhm,
different. Everyone receives things differently, and I think nowadays I think the culture shifted a lot. Right, shifted a lot last 4 or 5 years. The pendulum
mhm,
swung such a direction where everyone was a little bit ultra sensitive,
mhm,
and now we're kind of swinging it back a little bit. And I'm just being very conscious about it. Some things were great by being a little sensitive on things. It's like, yeah, we need to
mhm,
treat people with respect, but at the same time, we still need to figure out what's going on. We need to have that growth, that confrontation, that anxiety, right?
mhm.
Society's teaching us anxiety is a bad thing. Well, why is
Right.
that? We are all kind of have our own ideas. However, you have some anxiety, you go to a doctor, you get a pill, and the pharmaceuticals are this huge conglomerate that kind of runs some of the parties of the country. So they
Mhm.
benefit from that, right? They benefit from saying everyone has anxiety. They make more money
Yeah.
at the end of the day. The culture's out there. And how do
Yeah.
we move on from that, right? How do we kind of go back? And I think a lot of the stuff too is, I'm a father of three daughters. So I think
Mhm,
I'm blessed. It's a little easier for me. I can make them aggressive. That's fine. But if I had sons today, I would find difficulties in raising them. They couldn't do what I did growing up. That's just not socially acceptable. But how do they
mhm,
keep their masculinity? How do they know when to be aggressive and not to? So it's like for me,
mhm,
it's kind of like balancing it, balancing
mhm.
yourself. And it's like it's okay to be aggressive, and you just got to
Mhm.
know how to use it. But
Yeah.
when you're not society doesn't allow you to use it at all, what
Yeah.
happens? And that's kind of how
Mhm,
we naturally are. So it's a tough thing for men today to go through is when can you do it? Because if you're confrontational, we just talked about we're just
mhm.
asking questions,
Right.
people
Right.
look at you differently. So now imagine growing up with that. It's a tough thing for men today.
Yeah.
It's very tough. So they don't know really how to channel it or deal with it. And I think things are shifting back a little bit. There's a lot of
Mhm,
gravitation towards men's groups and a lot of how can I be a man of 2024 or 2025.
mhm.
We're actually working on it. I think that's a healthy thing, and we're swinging a little bit back more so we could have a little confrontation, and we're not going to be canceled or anything.
Right. Right. I guess how do you how have you, I feel like I had two questions pop into my mind. Like, how have you, or how do you teach your daughters to see men in the world? Or like, how would you want them to kind of like receive good men, or maybe not like a man in sheep's clothing, so to say, like someone that presents one way, but that's like, yeah, you got to watch out for that one. That one might be a snake over there.
Well, my oldest is only 17, and
Gotcha.
she's been in the books, so I'm lucky. There's been no guy
You're
talk yet,
not
so I'm
you're
very
not
happy
swatting
about
them
that.
away. Be like,
Yeah,
what is
yeah,
this?
yeah,
Like,
and yeah. So I'm fortunate with that one. Then I have my 9 year old and my 4 year old who like already my 4 year old gets hugged too much. She's a very adorable little one, and so I'm telling her, it's like, well, tell him no, 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 no touchy, So
mm,
got that, and my 9 year old is just very bubbly. She makes friends with everybody, and
mm,
just Halloween, like 5 boys ran by and go, "Oh, you're the Brooklyn," and I'm like, "Oh no, I'm not sure
uh,
about that one." So they already know. So, but I think they understand their father's kind of got a strong presence, and so
mm,
I think they'll hopefully attract that type of male. However, I don't want the male that's too strong of a presence, but
mm,
that stays. So we'll see what happens. But right now they're young, and they're yeah. I'm fortunate that they're great. I mean, there's
gotcha.
um, for me at their age, we'll work on it. But I think they'll be attracted to strong males as long as I show that presence right around them, and
Right.
keep my composure, knowing how to balance the two. I don't, and that's big. It's like how I act in front of them. It's like they don't really see me being aggressive, but they do see me being
Mm,
firm at time.
right. Right.
Just so they can see the how do I say it? Seeing the good sides of being masculine, not the bad sides of being masculine. I try my
Mm.
best there.
That's a good point. I think also one thing you kind of point to when we were talking back about your experience with the high school boys group, or the not not your friends group, but the school you went to, and kind of seeing how like it had some elements to it that were good, but then it didn't really evolve, and not being able to question things, but having the opportunity to kind of learn as you go, but not try to like reinforce things out of fear. But also, like a lot of what was instilled in you was like things of perseverance, and then being able to kind of open up and be an entrepreneur of all things. It's like um, you have to be flexible. So like not really seeing that, okay, like all of a sudden you had kids and you're like, oh, well, what am I going to do? Like this might not work out. It's like you're not, it doesn't seem like you're trying to control every single lever. It's like you do the best that you can starting with yourself, and then you seem to be instilling like the best qualities that you can in them through your experience and then what you're learning on the job.
Yeah, yeah. It is, and it just, I mean, for me, I feel like it's pretty easy with them. Hopefully they turn out okay. I'm doing a good job with them. I just want to be someone who's there for them, that they feel safe around their dad, and they can call upon me when they need me.
Yeah.
Also, just I'm kind of a pushover at times. I could say mom's more tough on them with things all the time, so they kind of a little bit of a pushover with
Yeah.
some things. So always get them gifts, but just uh, at the end of the day, they're doing really well. I'm super proud of them. So I think I'm doing a good job with them.
That's good. I commend you for I guess being a dad and doing your due diligence, because I guess as I get older and being surrounded by other men and other dads, it's like, you have to, I think it's good to acknowledge other people and showing like at least showing some appreciation, to be like, hey, like good on you, even if it doesn't feel like, hey, I did this. Like nobody's coming and giving you a trophy to be like, hey, good job, dad. But it's like in the end, I think it does count towards something, and it's something to be commended.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it's great. So yeah, the other day, my daughter lost a tooth, and it's like, and I'm like, yeah, now I'm trying to get the tooth out of the pillow, but it's so like deep in there. Next day
Mhm.
she goes, Dad, I think you're the tooth fairy. And I go, oh, no, I'm not. And she's like, I felt a beard. I'm like, well, things have changed. And it's like, they may have beards nowadays. So, so let's see. I'm not sure if that was like 2 nights ago. We'll see if that works. I was
Uh,
like, I'm like looking for the thing. It's like so deep. It's like she just got so buried underneath that. That was tough. So we'll see what
that's
happens
hilarious.
with that one.
Uh, so you mentioned that you're writing a book. What's the book about, and what's been leading you to write it?
Yeah, it's called "You Know What You Gotta Do," and it's
Mm,
based on that saying comes from my mother. So every time I face a challenge, she goes to me, "You know what you gotta do," and so I
mm,
felt like I had to tell my story, a little bit of what made me who I am today. And a lot of that
mhm,
is because the business I run a business, it's sort of a platform that opens up private markets to everyone, regardless of your socioeconomic background, and to let people know that, hey, these investment opportunities weren't given to me. I'm like you. I come from a working class family, and that's what put me
mhm,
on this path to give back to you. And so a little bit of that shares with just the people who I work with and the people who I'm trying to serve, my story, where I came from versus I
mm,
face, so they could read it and see who I am as a person and connect with me and say, okay, here's a person. This is why he's doing this today. And
mm.
then they could understand why I really want to serve people like myself and make life a little bit better for them.
Gotcha. That seems like a noble undertaking. What's been the what's that experience been like? Just going through that process of putting your thoughts down on paper, or like recording it, just trying to capture it all.
Yeah, it's a process like anything else. It's the right time. I believe it's the right
Mhm,
time. It's just a little bit easier. I think this year a lot of things are very easy for me to articulate, and now we're at
mhm,
a part of just not saying too much and making it the flow right, getting
mm.
the editing done. So we're at that stage right now with things. So
Gotcha.
some of the stories I might say might seem a little old fashioned, so just modernize them a little bit. Just what how does the person benefit from what I said too as well, just kind of really doing the editing properly with that. That
Mm,
iteration process, we're getting towards the end right here. I think we're like a month or two away
mm,
from finishing and publishing it. And yeah, like everything else is processed, but I think it was a little easier than I anticipated because
mhm,
I'm ready to share. um, and just kind of really now it's just the editing process, which not the easiest process because you go back and forth, and not being too perfect is the hard thing.
mhm.
And then
Right.
sometimes you go, should I be more perfect on this? It's like I can be better. So it's like, what's that balance? So
Yeah.
that's a hard to do. They always say people try to make it too perfect,
Mhm,
and also people try to say too much, and you
mm.
want to have the ability to write another book and another book as well. So you don't want to give
Right.
everything away. It's more like a teaser. So um,
Gotcha.
I'm looked at it, it's like, well, do we overshare this? And so just want to strike the right balance.
Mm. And I guess how's it being received with your team that you're working with?
Great so far. Everything's team's fine. Team's good.
Gotcha.
I lean on them to tell me if I always ask them questions. How is this compared to other people you work with? Where we're
Mhm,
at with things. What do you think? We have that feedback loop. I do receive information, take constructive criticism, and we'll take it to heart, so we can iterate. And so we're working well together as a team. I believe we are.
gotcha. And the obviously the business that you're doing now is the one that you developed from moving to California, getting involved with different mentors and developing a business market. Like what does that entail, or like how did you um how did you make it work for you?
Yeah, the business, this iteration of the business is my third business, and it's about 8 years old, and it's been a lot of work to get where it is today because really we had to lean on technology to get it
Mhm,
where it is. And right now I have about 900,000 people have signed up, 30,000 people invested in the platform, close to 100,000 transactions, close to half a
wow.
billion dollars of of assets we've managed over the years. And now, how do I kind of grow it from where it is today to a household name? So that's kind of the next stage of the growth of everything. So just kind of working out all the kinks. What's really nice about it is like I know what
Mm.
I need to do through the trial and error of the first 8 years of being a business. Really, the a lot of lessons learned. It's like taking something that hasn't been done before. You're going against the establishment, and they're
Mm.
not really willing to help you out in the process. And
Right, right.
there's a lot of people, I won't say against you, but just there's a lot of friction in there. And you're
Mm.
trying to help people out, but along the way, you have to work with compliance agencies. You have to work with just customers and how you serve with them. You have to deal with investments. You have to deal with a lot of old fashioned, non tech related businesses. So you're trying to bring them all together. And then you got the vendors, and they just care about bills at the end of the day, which you got to look
Mm.
at your costs are involved and kind of balance that all together. Technology is changing, marketing is changing, markets are changing. You got all these moving pieces at the end of the day, but that's the excitement. I like that stuff.
Right.
And a lot of the stuff that I think I grew up with made me the right person to do this. When we face the adversities, when there's market challenges and changes, it doesn't scare me. And I think
Mm.
and that's just my opinion, that's where people really make the mistakes when the markets change. When the markets change,
Mm.
there's a lot of uncertainty and fear. And that's where I'm like, this is good. I'm comfortable with change. I'm comfortable in chaos. I'm comfortable with uncertainty. And I see opportunity. In an investment world, that's the best time to pounce on an investment is when there is a lot of fear and anxiety because people make irrational decisions and there's good
Mm.
investments out there. And then now taking that attitude and my thought process and communicating to other people because they're not like that. They're not like me. So they're apprehensive.
Mm.
Oh, this is, they have anxiety. And trying to teach them and educate them that no, you got to be rational right now. And
Mm.
look, this is actually the time to do this. Whereas when you feel comfortable, that's the time not to do this.
Mm.
And you always hear
Right.
like Warren Buffett say that stuff like that is, hey, you want to go against the masses and the crowds. Well,
Mm.
they're run on emotion at the end of the day. So they all feel good at the same time. They all feel bad at the same time. So how do you have this
Right.
contrarian thought? So it's just educating people. If I educate everyone about this, then you're
Mm.
just going to be no opportunity. You just want to have the right people in your community to teach them. This is how it works at the end of the day. And
Gotcha.
it's really been a fascinating process. It's every time I figure one thing out, there's another thing to figure out. So it's like solving problems all the time, which I like to do. So it's always like a Rubik's cube of puzzles you're playing with.
Yeah. It's pretty neat. I guess it's like, is it like you said, when you're the people that you work with, I guess they gain the benefit of working with you. But I guess in writing a book or sharing what it is that you have as like your talents or your processes, does that take anything away from you?
Yeah, no, not really. It's just sharing it with a couple things there. It's just like the book is just more about me. All the
Mm.
adversities I face and the way how I deal with them and the
Mm.
mindset I have to get through it. It's really more of a mindset than anything else, than a process. And
Right, right.
then as I grow and build teams and people around me, that's different. That's always the markets change, people's attitudes change, and there is a lot to unpackage there.
Mm.
So having a great vision is great, and building a great company is great. And you got to
Mm.
look at not only you have to serve a lot of different, I call it stakeholders and constituents. It's just not your shareholders, not just your customers, it's your
Mm.
employees, it's your vendors. And how do you kind of connect that all together that you're all aligned? So sooner or later, the vision will wear off if you're not paying people good money, right? If they still have to
Right,
make
right.
money. So how do you have a great idea, a great vision, and you're really supporting that through everything I just said? And so we just came out this great bull run that venture capitalists were just feeding everybody. So you could hire great people, they're going to get paid. Didn't make a
Mm.
difference if your business is profitable or not. And so there's always that paycheck there. So you have people that were aligned with your vision, they're getting paid well, but your business might not be working out so well, might not have the top business plan. And nowadays it's okay, that money is dried up.
Mm.
And so you have to kind of reconfigure how you do things. So after a while, if you're not gonna have a business that can't pay people well, as much as the vision's great, they're probably gonna leave. So you kind of how do you do that? So you're kind of, I would say your runway is shorter to do that. So your time period is
Mm,
shorter to kind of put all those pieces together. So it makes it more challenging at the end of the day. Having experience going through it is helpful to get through those things, but it's just connecting all those things together. Hey, I have a great cause. I have a great
mm,
business model. And now I could, and then it's producing profits, and now I can get some good people. And I think at the end of the day, is people make your bid. You want to hire the best, right? And the
right,
best
right.
people. There is a premium sometimes to get them. The vision will wear out after a while, so you have to, get to that point where you have the money to keep paying people, or the value. Is your company offering value, at least? And if it's something where you believe that company is creating value and it's gaining in value, there's always a way people will stick around. But sometimes when you hit some rough patches
Mm,
and it's not going well, you're just not going to be able to recruit the right people.
gotcha. I guess have you had a lot of rough patches, like say through the pandemic or like other down market times? Because I mean, I guess like whether it's the stock market, it's the housing market, um, different markets kind of push and pull like levers, and some days it seems like something's up, something's down, but then you do have like a consistent value add, so to speak, of like your common goods that everyone uses, or like delivering services to say, okay, hey, here's where we can either, especially being in an assets market, you're looking to have people put money into something that would get them a return on their money, or at least have their money work for them and not be idle, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, it oscillates a little bit. So when you do something that hasn't been done before, you're learning all the time,
Hmm.
and you either figure it out or you don't. It's that simple. You figure it out or you don't figure it
Yeah.
out. And at this stage, we have it figured out, and I think a lot of it's through iteration. So we have the highs and lows. The market changes. You're like, oh
Hmm.
no, what are we gonna do here? And you have to adapt accordingly, and just having that. And that goes back to my background, having that
Hmm.
kind of mental muscle that's trained to get through that and keep going forward, and then adapting, because when you adapt, things do change. And
Hmm.
um but right now, yeah, right now it's like we're, no matter how the market is, we're fine as an organization to do that. That was just through just kind of developing the company over the years to get where it is today. And
Right.
there has been some highs and some lows to get there, and things are kind of constantly changing. And it's different in the business world. It's not. There is things you just have to deal with when it comes up with it, and just having the
Hmm.
perseverance to get through it. But we're in a great place today.
Gotcha. Do you have any daily rituals that you practice to be in the right mind frame for your business, or versus like being a dad at home?
Yeah, I mean, I have a routine I do every morning when I get up. So and then I do some of the hot cold therapy as well, a few days a week.
Mhm,
And just make sure uh I have a trainer. I make sure I go to the gym 4 or 5 days a week on top of that as well. So kind of mixing all that up keeps me focused. Breath work, I do sometimes breath work in the middle of the day as well. So I do have a routine every morning. I get up, I do some breath work, I do some journaling. So it's usually journal, breath work, and some stretching for about 25 minutes. And then I go get a cup of coffee after
mm,
that. And then after that, then I sit down from the computer, and I usually have a good hour of work. And then usually my kids wake up and I spend time with them, get them ready for school and stuff. So I do have this ritual like every single day. Uh, Even the weekends. Lately, I've been just doing it throughout the weekends as well. Weekends, you might have a tendency, and I've read a lot about this and talked to a lot of people about that. They let the foot off the gas on the weekends, and before you know it,
mm,
you are really having a half day. Because at the
mm,
end of the day, you might be with the family, and you want to do some stuff for yourself. So keeping that routine going is important even on the weekends, just to really get everything in you need to get in. You think at the end of the day, it's like hard to get time for yourself. So if you
yeah,
maybe oversleep, or you miss a couple things early in the morning, then you might not be able to fit everything in on some things for yourself because the family requirements are pretty. They're there on the weekend. So for me, I'm not gonna call it a job. I love being around my family, but if I don't get up at an early hour, I don't have any time for myself on the weekend. So I
Right.
make sure to do that. Yeah.
That's pretty neat that you do that because I guess would you consider that that morning time for yourself or kind of like time to do the things you want aside from like just doing routine maintenance, so to speak?
It lays the foundation for the day for myself.
Mm,
So it's important for me to try to get myself in the best mental state as possible so I could be focused and present with people from every part of my life. Um, if you're not the best version of yourself and working on the best version of yourself, it's hard to be there for other people, to serve other
mm,
people, no matter who that is. And you always have to. I always look back on. I have to get myself in the correct frame of mind to be a good father, be a good husband, to be a good employer, to be a good person, and that is where it starts. It starts with yourself and your own routines.
I would agree with you. I guess as 2024 is wrapping up, what are some of the things that you most looked forward to or that you would count as like, man, that really made my year?
It's coming together right now. So it's been a great year on a lot of things, and especially going into 2025.
Mhm,
Just with some of the relationships that I've developed towards these years, the areas where I was underdeveloped, I began to develop. For me, it's big working on my personal brand, public speaking, and can't wait for 2025. Also, a little bit, I want to start getting myself involved with some competitions in CrossFit in my age group. I'm pretty
mhm,
at the upper echelon there, so I've retuned my my training protocol and brought in a new coach to take me to the next level. So excited about that. I brought in some great public speaking coaches. I got an influencer as a coach as well.
mm,
Um, I'm really kind of I think the biggest thing is just owning the accountability to everything in my life to myself, really looking at no matter what has happened, not the way I want it to happen. I just look at that. That's my mistake. Instead of
mhm,
me pointing the finger at someone else, I go, okay, that's me. That's me
mm.
at the end of the day. I allow that to happen. And how can I be better at myself not to have that happen again? I think that's the biggest lesson I learned in 2024. Anything that didn't go the way I wanted to was ultimately, that was my responsibility to make it sure it goes the way I want it to go.
Mm. And how can people get in touch with you, whether it's online or offline?
Yeah, social media is great. CXC Cecilio, Craig Cecilio, highly active with social media. Very easy to find me. Check out my company, diversityfund.com, or myself at craigscecilio.com.
Awesome. And from the first question I ask you, I always like to wrap with this question. Are you still who you said you were?
I am more. It's not who I am. 110%. So I am an unstoppable force, and this is 2025 is going to be a great year for us.
Awesome. I agree with you. Thank you so much for your time today, Craig. It's a pleasure
Great.
talking with you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.